So we've got this video here called Liberal Feminists Are Getting Out of Hand, reacting to 17 magazine. And yes, we all know that kind of modern progressive third wave feminism would be the best way to describe it. Has been, like TPUSA is saying, getting out of hand. They've kind of gone from fighting against sexism to advocating for sexism, in many cases, even to the detriment of women themselves, even though a lot of modern feminists are just outspoken anti-male sexists or misandrists is the proper term for it. And there is a whole Vice panel I plan on reacting to later on that's like 40 minutes long. I don't have the time to react to it today. Where, you know, a bunch of different feminists sit together and talk about it in a way that's very interesting from what I hear. But for now, we have 17 magazine putting out some sort of feminist video and TPUSA reacting to it. I'm kind of interested to see what TPUSA has to say, especially since I don't consume a lot of TPUSA content. I do agree with them ideologically on a lot of things from what I know. But, you know, part of reacting to them on stream is going to be figuring out how much I actually do agree with them and whether or not I agree with them on as many things as I think that I do. Or maybe I agree with them and I disagree with some of their tactics, and that's entirely possible, like Joe Rogan said. So let's go ahead and get into this.
Feminism is not trying to take from men, but just trying to raise.
For the sake of discussion, I hope that, you know, what they're referring to when they say feminism, it's third wave feminism. So make sure that as you watch this video, if TPUSA talks negatively about feminism, they're not saying that, you know, everything going back to the suffrage movement was bad, but they're just saying that, you know, so idea of like men randomly becoming women because of their feelings or all these different types of things, you know, that's a whole lot different than, you know, traditional feminism, rather than whatever gobbledygook that we're kind of swimming in right now.
Feminism is not trying to take from men, but just trying to raise to the same level as what men have.
I think it's time for women to actually
have a voice.
What's going on, everybody?
I mean, women do very much have a voice. Have you watched an episode of Fresh and Fit or the Whatever podcast? Bad examples, because those men intentionally bring on dumb women onto their shows. But women have voices all over the place. There are plenty of prominent women and lots of like female individuals who, you know, are very influential, even in like the podcasting space, in the commentary space, such as this. And this goes for the left wing and the right wing too, right? It's not like the right wing has all men and the left wing has all women. There's a mixture on both.
I'm here with Alex Clark today.
Oh my gosh!
And we're going to be reacting to a 17 magazine YouTube video titled What It Means to Be a Feminist.
I honestly, you know what, lately I've been thinking about the word, the traditional word and meaning of what feminist used to be, and I'm kind of like, maybe I am. But
okay.
Not in the new way. Everything's been warped. So
True.
If I think back.
Exactly. Right. There's a difference between being like a true feminist and being woke. Two very, very different things. And you can just distinguish and be like, hey, I'm a first wave feminist. I'm a second wave feminist. I'm not a third wave feminist, right? So if you agree with feminism, if you're against sexism, but you're not pro wokeness, don't be afraid to say that you're a feminist, because being a feminist in the classical definition of the word is a genuinely good thing to be. So we shouldn't be scared of calling each other feminists, but we should be scared of, well, we shouldn't be scared of anything really, because God's got everything under control. But what we should be careful to do is make sure that we're not lumping ourselves into saying that we are alongside of the whole, they would say progressive. Frankly, it's more regressive, kind of like current woke feminist ideology that's more aligned with third wave feminism than any semblance of what feminism actually means.
To originally what people were fighting for, like the, you know, right to vote and things like that. I'm like, well, I get behind that.
Yeah, we
love
like that.
Now it's been totally misinterpreted and warped from the original true meaning. I'm excited to see what 17 has to say.
Let's see what they have to say.
we've already seen how men can.
This is interesting. It says this is what feminism actually means. I don't like being aggro and I don't like being mean. But if they don't say anything about first wave feminism versus second wave feminism versus third wave feminism, then they don't really know the definition of the word. Right. I know I briefly looked this up because I was actually confronted about this in my Discord. And thanks for everyone who provided me pushback, to force me to research my position on this. So it's very easy to find these definitions. You just go to Wikipedia. There are 3 predominant waves of feminism. So let's see here. First wave feminism focused on legal issues, primarily securing women's right to vote. The term is often used synonymously with the kind of feminism espoused by the liberal women's rights movement, with roots in the first wave, with organizations such as the International Alliance of Women and its affiliates. The feminist movement still focuses on equality from a mainly legal perspective. So basically saying that the law has to treat men and women equally, not treating men more favorably than women. Okay? That's first wave feminism. Very basic, clear cut. Basically saying government stop being sexist when you're applying the law. Rather nice. First wave feminism focuses on some tenets of what I would call classical feminism. I agree with some aspects of second wave feminism as well, but not all of them, but many of them. Second wave feminism here, let's see here. It says here, it broadens the debate to include a wide range of issues: sexuality, family, domesticity, the workplace, reproductive rights, de facto inequalities, and official legal inequalities. It was a movement that focused on critiquing the patriarchal or male-dominated institutions and cultural practices throughout society. Second wave feminism also drew attention to issues of domestic violence and marital rape, created rape crisis centers and women's shelters, and brought about the changes in custody laws and divorce law. Feminist-owned bookstores, credit unions, and restaurants were among the key meeting spaces and economic engines of the movement. So I agree kind of with a lot of what's here. I don't agree with reproductive rights, because it's not really like reproductive rights. It's just the right to kill your children. And when it comes to sexuality, being a Christian, right? Sex outside of marriage is wrong. However, if you're talking about a legal perspective, I do think America is founded on freedom. So, I don't know if sinful sexual acts shall be made illegal. So on that part, I'm kind of iffy on. And I certainly don't think that, ungodly sexual lifestyles should be praised or celebrated or promoted as something that's good. So, there's that in there too. But there's some things here that I think are very important, specifically when it comes to women being able to live on their own. I think there's a lot here in second wave feminism that hits on that and allows them to do so, which I think is very important, because they need to be able to, go out into the workplace and get a job and have enough pay to, support themselves without having to kind of live in their parents' houses for the rest of their lives, for example. I think it's very important. But then, of course, another thing about second wave feminism, though, that's, universally accepted as disastrous, has been kind of how it absolutely wrecked the whole children's custody situation, to where even just terrible mothers are able to prevent the fathers of their children from being involved in their lives, because of how the courts kind of swung in the other direction into being biased against men. It's one of the few, I think, blatant examples where you see, not patriarchy, but feminarchy. I don't know. Not patriarchy, but actually sexism against men in a way that's unfair in the legal system. One of the few instances that you can easily point to and find that. Then we have the sad case that is third wave feminism, which takes basically everything that was bad from second wave feminism and just cranks it up to not 11, but closer to 14 or 15. So let's see here. Now, it is good, it says that they embrace diversity and individualism in women, which is great because, women, not all women are the same. But, there are other things that just intersectionality, sex positivity, vegetarian ecofeminism, which I don't even know what that is, trans feminism, and postmodern feminism. A lot of this sort of is driving wokeness in our current culture. So This is the type of feminism that is mainstream right now. And so if someone is rejecting feminism, they may not be rejecting second wave feminism, right? They may be on board even with killing babies. And they're probably not going to be against first wave feminism either. They're just against the current wokeness, which is third wave feminism. So if that clears everything up, that's kind of what feminism actually is. Now let's see what 17 magazine is saying that feminism truly is. I'm afraid it's going to be a lot of, my dad would say psychobabble. That's a great word. I think a more commonly word used is gobbledygook. A word with less syllables is nonsense. But let's just see what they have to say.
We've already seen how men can run the world because they've been doing it, and there's been a lot of messed up things that have happened because of it. I think it's time for women to actually have a voice.
Now, I'm not sure what it is about what men, it's interesting, right? In third wave feminism, one thing they talk about is individuality and diversity, right? Not all women being the same. You can't put all women in a box, stuff like that. So can we do the same thing with men? I don't know if, I don't know for sure that like if the world was run by women, that it would be necessarily inherently better or worse than it is now. But I think it's hard to make the claim that things that have gone wrong in the world are because men are running it. How would you quantify whether or not, like, if women were in charge, will we have more or less war? I don't know that for sure. And I don't even know how you would measure that. I've never looked into that very closely. But you can't just like throw it out there without backing it up, Especially when it's such like a niche accusation to say, oh yeah, the world's in tatters because men run it. Which, first of all, is an incredibly sexist thing to say. Like, I love how the first person who is representing feminism is a blatant sexist. It's a perfect image of third wave feminism.
Intersectionality refers to the vectors of oppression that occur when...
Yeah, bro, this is a dude. Why are they having a dude tell it? I know it's hypocritical because I'm a dude, but I guess because like the background was purple, I was assuming that everyone here would be a woman.
Systems and hierarchies interact.
There are so many different levels and facets of oppression besides womanhood and then color, womanhood and then economic opportunity or class or sexual orientation.
I will give this to the leftists, right? I think you have a better argument for saying there's oppression along the lines of class than along the lines of anything else. And of course, certain people based on certain systems were kind of pigeonholed into being in certain classes. For example, creating the welfare state sort of kind of weaned the Black community, which was very entrepreneurial at the time, into being dependent on the government and having children outside of wedlock, which kind of locked them into a certain income bracket. That's just the facts. If you want to know why there's so many Black people that are poor, it's because of the welfare state. Is what it is. And unfortunately, that bell can't be unrung because I don't know if the Black community has the same entrepreneurial spirit that they did before the welfare state showed up. Unfortunately, like I don't know where is everyone who would like start up the New Orleans movement again in 2023. A little tangent there, a little rant. I'm still salty about that. FDR, you were the president that I will like the least because of this. Being a woman doesn't really preclude you from being part of one income bracket or the other, because let's face it, rich people have baby girls, poor people have baby girls, and middle class people have baby girls. And unfortunately, I think there's less like socioeconomic mobility than there should be. But generally speaking, a middle class kid will grow up to be in the middle class. So I don't see like what you're gonna see like a rich family with a rich son and a rich daughter, and the daughter becomes like low income, lower class citizen, and then the son becomes to be like incredibly wealthy and successful because of sexism. I don't think that's how the real world works.
Or gender identity, those things just add on top of the weight that happens when you identify as a woman.
I'm not going to even address the foolishness that is identify as a woman. But but you're going to feel weight when you turn yourself into an oppressed class, or at least you have this martyr complex, which a lot of modern feminists have. And I've seen this happen in the Christian community where Christians do this too. They're like, "Oh, I'm so oppressed," as they read their Bible freely and go to church on Sunday, right? Like, so many people in America alone have so much freedom, but because of the civil rights movement, how those who were being oppressed were in the moral right in comparison to society, I think people sort of boiled it all down to being oppressed is virtuous, and so therefore I must be oppressed somehow. And so either they kind of magnify small issues in society to be mountains when they're truly molehills, or they kind of make up these things in their head so they think that men are out to get them when really they're not.
In our culture,
if your feminism is not intersectional, is not trans inclusive, if it's ableist, if it's racist, then it's not feminism. Our movement.
Feminism doesn't have anything to do with racism. I think there were actually plenty of racist feminists from how I understand it. And again, this is entirely third wave feminism. So remember, almost all of them have referenced intersectionality, which is a major tenet of third wave feminism that sets it apart from second wave feminism.
It becomes less powerful if we're leaving people behind.
Okay.
Oh no.
Okay.
I love that most of the people in this video, I don't even know that they did identify as women.
There was
They were
definitely one
amoebas.
man.
They just exist and move around.
Bro, like the whole like identify as thing is just like, in general, pretty silly. So I don't even know why they're like kind of like making a big deal out of like, oh, I didn't know they identified. Like, who cares? Like, they're men or they're women. It is what it is. It's chill.
Around. That's what
They
these people are.
exist. What it means to be a feminist, I heard racism, I heard all the isms. Racism, if it doesn't identify transgenderism and acknowledge all these things. And that's what I want to talk about. It's like, I feel like the feminist movement has grasped onto the LGBTQ movement, and that is now what feminism is.
I didn't hear one.
I think you missed it. Third wave feminism is the LGBT movement. You do not have the LGBT movement without third wave feminism. You do not have wokeness without third wave feminism. I think that if someone asks you what wokeness is, third wave feminism would be the perfect response, because it sort of encapsulates all of it, right? We're talking about racism now. Racism. That has nothing to do with feminism, like what the word actually means, the rights of women. Race has to do with the rights of people, and that includes men. So it's a broader issue that doesn't just affect women.
An example of how we're not at the same level as men. How in America do I not have the same rights as a man? I would love for someone to tell me. And of course, they're going to say things like gender wage gap or whatever, but we already know that.
It's I bet it's probably when it comes to like divorce and custody rights, where women don't have nearly as many rights as men when it comes to that situation.
And debunked. And at the end, how she, the person at the end.
Don't call people it. I will say this. I hate it when the right does this, and I'll admit I used to do this when I was a kid. Don't call non-binary, individuals it. That's dehumanizing. Just call them men or women, or refuse to refer to their pronouns, but don't call them it. I think that is dehumanizing, like, language that's just not helpful and is like harmful rhetoric. My croc shoe is an it because it's not a person. Now, a person is not an it. That is not an it. I mean, pebbles are its. Rocks are its. People are not its.
The person at the end brought up how true feminism, you need to be inclusive of all these things.
If your feminism is not intersectional, trans inclusive, if it's racist, then it's not feminism.
The first thing that I wanted to jump out and say is, would you be inclusive of me as a conservative pro-life woman?
No. Like, that would be there.
Yeah, no. So, like, one thing about feminism, third wave feminism, which is wokeness, is that they're some of the most intolerant people you'll ever find. right? If you disagree with what they believe, they will shun you. It's very, very similar to how cults behave. You can't just take everything that they say on like an extreme like surface level. Because if you even poke a little bit, then the balloon pops, right? Right, you're inclusive. Men are men and women are women, and then you'll scream at me or block me on Twitter. So right? So it's like, well, how inclusive are you then, right? No tolerance for the intolerant, as I've heard it said. Wow, gee, you sound really tolerant there.
Our answer is no, because we've seen time and time again that what the left loves to do is spew out the names of like, this is, we're all inclusive, but then are not inclusive to straight, cis, and normal. It was funny because at the beginning they even said, we're not trying to diminish men. We're not trying to be better than men. We just want to be equal to them. But that equal is in turn tearing down men.
With equality, everybody has an equal opportunity. We all have the opportunity in America to try to achieve whatever we want to achieve, but it is
exactly. And first and second feminism in many ways cuts down on some of those barriers. First wave feminism did that in a legal sense. Second wave feminism did that largely in a socioeconomic sense.
Is absolutely impossible to be able to say everybody is going to have an equal outcome. And so when you try to implement these equity measures, somebody always ends up hurting or suffering to
Equity is about as fair as group projects.
Make everyone equal. Okay, you know what my hot take is what I would like to see the feminist movement fight for in America is longer paid maternity leave.
That would be
women.
So good.
We get nothing in America compared to other countries. Some other countries are giving women years to be able to spend time with their babies once they have them, and then they can come back and they totally have their job.
It's a slightly anti-capitalist take, but I mean, I do agree somewhat. I don't think that they should have years, but certainly months.
No, they're worried about promoting instead of maternity leave is just climbing the corporate ladder.
You have all of these millennial women who bought into the girl boss lie, who are now in their 40s and are very unhappy and are like, dude, I just missed the mark. I completely missed the window to have kids. I'm lonely and I'm sad and I have these employees, but none of them are going to be there for me on my deathbed one day.
We still see modern feminism as pro-woman.
You cannot say that you're pro-woman and also say we're going to allow men into all of these female spaces. It's not pro-woman to say, hey, you're a woman who's being rescued and put into a battered woman's shelter. We want to take care of you and make you feel safe. By the way, we're going to let this man stay in here as well. That doesn't make absolutely any sense. You have teenage girls who are having grown men strip in front of them at the gym and things like that and undress in front of them and have male genitalia in their face. That's not pro-woman. That's not making...
Although, you know, the existence of locker rooms where people just run around all over each other being naked is, you know, a strange societal concept in and of itself, which should certainly be reconsidered on a social level. So that whole thing, I think, is just very strange and, you know, something that is worth considering. But they are right here.
Women feel safe. And I feel like we've heard all of these things about safe spaces and all these different things, and they've completely contradicted themselves with what is now considered feminist.
What is a woman? What is a feminist? Like, they can't define that. It's the most harmful thing to women. It's sad. I hope you guys enjoyed us talking about what it means to be an actual feminist. Be sure to like, subscribe, and tap that notification bell, and let us know what you think in the comments. And we'll see you next time.
I mean, good takes here. I was thinking that they might actually like play more of the footage that they were objecting to, but very clearly there was so much wrong with the original video that they just went off and, you know, couldn't really do too much. Now maybe the video was like 30 seconds long, which is as much footage as they showed, but yeah, it's kind of sad. This whole thing kind of exposes kind of where wokeness comes from, the nature of modern feminism and the problems with it, and how feminism is more than just modern wokeness. There are some really great things from feminism in both first and second wave feminism that we should continue to rally behind. And just because modern feminism is, you know, woke and strange and degrading society, it doesn't mean that we should throw all of feminism, you know, out, right? Because there's some great things with first wave feminism, great things with second wave feminism. So we should continue to support those tenets, so that women continue to have rights. But we just shouldn't, then continue on the path of third wave feminism, where we kind of create a new society where, we let men trample over women in these certain sectors, and we let women trample over men in these certain sectors. Because that creates a war of the sexes that's just going to be entirely unhealthy. And we're already seeing some people come out of that woodwork, such as Andrew Tate, such as Sneeko. We don't have these crazy folks without the rise in third wave feminism, right? Third wave feminism was not this prominent 10 years ago. And when you looked at who the red pill leaders were, they were relatively mild. There were Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, telling people to clean their room and get themselves together, not telling them that women should be treated like property. Just saying, feminism is making things worse, and it's making people on the right more extreme. These feminists need to be careful. They need to pay more attention, because they are actually radicalizing the other side and actually turning a lot of people in society, like making them be against women, against women's rights altogether, just because you're being such terrible representations of what feminism actually is. It's terrible.